Namaste, and welcome to Inspirations, the weekly Nepal TV show that brings you inspiring people working in Nepal. I'm Mike Rosenkrantz of VSO, and today we have a special guest, Scott Bahia, the country director of OXFAM Nepal. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you, Mike.
Good to see you. So let's start off our questions today, our conversation, by telling the audience a little bit about your childhood, where you grew up, your family, that kind of thing.
My ancestry is Italian, but all four of my grandparents were immigrants, and they came to the United States. And I suppose this is part of my good fortune because I was privileged to be born in the United States, and I grew up in the United States. It was a wonderful environment. It was a safe environment. There was no crime. There was no threats. There was always food on the table, a place to play. I had a great education. And I, in a sense, lived in this bubble, and I didn't even know what the rest of the world was like. I was clueless. But now, after all my subsequent experiences, I know how extremely privileged I was to grow up in the United States, in a large family with 3 brothers and 1 sister, and many, many cousins.
Which state did you grow up in?
I grew up in Connecticut, in the Northeast, so my home is roughly halfway between Boston and New York City.
Tell us something about your career, and how did you end up coming to work in Nepal?
I got my university education in the United States as an engineer, and I started college in the late 60s, so it was a kind of special time, I think, in the United States in terms of throbbing through the people of my age, my generation. And I decided that I wanted to go live and work overseas and try and do something good. And full of idealism, I joined the Peace Corps, and that was in 1973. I have been working in the development field since then, since 1973. I've never gone back to live in the United States. And I've been privileged to live in the Caribbean, in Africa, and in Asia for all those years, since 1973.
What are some of the countries that you have experience in?
Well, as I said, I started in the Peace Corps. That was in Malaysia. And I did that until 1976. And then I joined a major development organization at that time. I joined CARE. And it was a privilege for me to work with CARE. And I worked in Indonesia, and then Haiti, and then Ethiopia, and then Nepal, and then Somalia, South Sudan, Sri Lanka, and Egypt. And then I ended up back in Nepal.
And so tell us something about OXFAM Nepal. What are the kinds of projects? What are your thematic areas? Where are you working in Nepal?
So OXFAM is a rights-based organization. It is very concerned about people's rights, especially those who are the most vulnerable and those who are excluded. And you find those in every country in the world, even my own country, the United States. Yeah. And OXFAM puts a particular emphasis on women. And we've learned through 70 years of doing development work in OXFAM that women are the key to success and development. And they have been neglected and marginalized and, say, mistreated in general in most cultures in the world over centuries and centuries. So we have a special focus on women. In Nepal, we do a lot of disaster risk reduction work, and it's a major focus. We do things in the Terai, in flood-prone communities, places like Saptari, Danusha. We do a lot of earthquake preparedness work in the Kathmandu Valley and in a couple of municipalities in the Terai. One example of that is in Kathmandu. We just recently completed a major overhaul and strengthening of the water system in the Tribhuvan University Teaching Hospital. I mean, it's very frightening. If there was a major earthquake here, almost every hospital would basically stop functioning or be functioning minimally. And one of the key elements in being able to function is the secure water supply. That's a rarity, you could say, in the situation here. So we did that, but we're thinking in broader terms as well. We want to prepare water and sanitation facilities in the case of an earthquake, and the government, working with IOM, has identified 83 sites in the Kathmandu Valley that are basically open areas where if there's an earthquake and people's houses collapse, that they will go to the open areas and they will end up living in tents. But even if you're living in a tent, you need water and sanitation.
Right.
OXFAM has had a major presence in all the major gatherings regarding climate change. So we were in Doha last month, and we didn't go alone. We went with some Nepali partners, and we also supported the government's efforts there. So we helped them clarify their thinking. Nepal has just taken over the chairmanship of the LDC group in the climate change discussions, which is a really important role. And of course, Nepal being so affected by climate change, they should be just maximizing the power of their voice in that chairmanship. So we're working with the Ministry of the Environment and other sectors in the government to help them in their thinking and activities and planning on climate change. OXFAM is very active in food security programs. These are centered around the far west, and so Darchula, Dailek, Baitati, Dandaldura, Surkhet are the major areas, and that's the most vulnerable part of Nepal in terms of food security, which I think is common knowledge. I think everyone knows that.
Right. OXFAM has a long-term investment in Nepal, right? How many years has OXFAM been working in Nepal?
OXFAM has been working in Nepal for 30 years now.
For 30 years.
Yeah.
So that's great. Yeah. I mean, you're obviously invested in Nepal because of your job, but also you're married to a Nepali as well.
Well, yes, I am. For now, I'm trying to remember our anniversary. Well, 18 years.
18 years.
18 years. And we have a son who's here with us in Nepal.
Some moments last a lifetime. Classic Diamond Jewelers.
उठेर कोर्नुस् वा बसेर कोर्नुस् दाहिने देब्रे जुनाले कोर्नुस् नागरिकमा नगद पुरस्कार पक्का पक्की छ
कुपन जसरी स्क्रैच गरे पनि नागरिकका हरेक वार्षिक ग्राहकलाई हजारौंको नगद पुरस्कार पर्ने पक्का पक्की छ
टिभी हेरेर बुझ्नुस् वा रेडियो सुनेर बुझ्नुस्
हामीलाई फोन गरेर बुझ्नुस् पत्रिकामा पढेर बुझ्नुस् नागरिकमा नगद पुरस्कार पक्का पक्की छ
अनि पुरस्कार नपरेमा 10 वर्षसम्म निशुल्क नागरिक दैनिक थप जानकारीका लागि फोन नम्बर 4268656
King's Wimpy Burger, Zaulakhel, Lalitpur. Phone number 0155211744.
Who in your life has been an inspiration to you? Individuals, organizations?
Well, my real quick response to that, when I was growing up, Martin Luther King, John Kennedy, who started the Peace Corps, Mahatma Gandhi, who kind of made me interested in India and made me interested to come to Asia. And I would add Nelson Mandela to that group. Okay, and if you want to ask me why those people, they all were obviously very special, and they all did something special, and they somehow contributed to humanity and to humankind, and each in their own way made a special contribution. But it's not just their contribution, it's also something about how they contributed to humankind. Their thinking and their process of doing so, their methodologies, they were all highly inspirational to me.
What are some of the moments in your life that you truly remember, that had an impact on you? Yes.
Right. Many of them have to do with the work I did. I mean, seeing the poverty and suffering that people undergo, seeing things like the famine in East Africa, the things that I saw in Somalia, in Sudan, what I saw in Haiti, what I saw in the tsunami. I mean, those things just impacted me tremendously, and I've always struggled with the idea of why there's so much injustice and inequality in the world. And of course, the people that I mentioned were ones who were in particular were trying to rectify injustice and inequality.
And what message would you like to leave our viewers with?
I mean, I think that the Nepali people have to ask themselves some serious questions. I mean, one is, why is it that 6 years after the peace agreement, you haven't made progress? I mean, you haven't made sufficient progress. Maybe there's some things here that people could point to, but sorry, in my opinion, it's not enough. So that question is a big one for this country. Why haven't you moved further along in terms of resolving your issues, resolving the things that created the conflict? And a lot of that has to do with injustice and inequality and so on. And I would particularly ask the political class here, why aren't you doing more to help the country overcome these issues? Other questions to ask yourself, why is it that your economy has gotten to the point where 25% of it is remittances from people overseas? Why are there 500,000 Nepalis in Malaysia? It's staggering. Why are there several million in the Middle East? What's the reason? Why are you losing your youth? Why is it that they don't want to stay here? What's the reason? And how do you address it? How are you going to provide opportunities for everyone in Nepal in a fair and just way? You got to ask yourself the question, why are they doing that instead of being here in what I would say is one of the nicest and most beautiful countries in the world? Please think about those questions and about what you can do to contribute to some solution. You Nepali people have to find the solution, and the Nepali people have to make the solution work. You can't say, well, here's the solution, you do it. I'm busy doing something else, having a good time, or going on vacation, whatever. And then finding those solutions jointly and then being part of the solution and contributing to it.
Well, very good. Thank you so much for a very insightful and interesting conversation today.
Okay. Well, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. This is Mike Rosenkrantz saying, Beri Batola. Thanks for joining us this week, and hope to see you again next week.